Hey everybody, doing some work on my new Dodge. I've recently put these toolboxes on in that middle one there, and I quite like how it's coming out. I will be putting some underhung boxes here. They're just waiting to go on. But currently this does make a nice truck bed with sides, but there's no tailgate, so that's what I'm doing today. I've got everything starting to get mocked up here. I have a piece of 1/8 inch plate steel. And this is 1x2 box tubing that I'm going to use as a frame just to stiffen everything up. It'll be hinged right on the corner, of course. And I've got these pieces of tubing here that'll serve as, I guess, like a latch post. The door is going to come up to the edge here, and I'll have these, one on each side, these sliding gate latches. I'm going to get rid of this piece just using this main piece here. It'll be mounted roughly like that, so when I operate the latch, this bolt here will slide through into some holes that I'm going to drill in here. And for when the tailgate comes down, I'm going to just use some chain, like an old-fashioned tailgate, to make the tailgate flat. So some of these pieces of box tubing will have the end of the tube exposed, and just for mainly cosmetic purposes, to make everything look nice and clean and finished, I made little end caps, welded them on, and same thing with this as well. And then afterwards just grind it nice and smooth, and it just adds just a little finishing touch, just a little extra care. So I'm lengthening these locking bolts now. See, I did the first one, came out pretty nice. Of course I'm going to have to grind that smooth later. And here is my setup. Now, even though this extender piece and the bolt is 5/8, this was made in China at a minimum material condition, so that actually measures like 5/92 thousandths, of course, and then this piece is actually 6/25. So if I were to clamp it in the angle iron just the way it is, the bolt piece would be slightly lower and off center. So I just measured the difference. It was roughly 30 thousandths. I found some wire that was 15 thou in diameter, wrapped it around. It's essentially a shim now, and it's all nice and in line. And the last little thing, can't quite see, the foot or face or whatever of the C-clamp has a V ground in it, and it really helps for situations like this. So let's zap this together and smooth it up. So the last thing I did to modify these bolts is weld on an extended handle, and I did that since you can see the original handle, which is right there in the down latched position. It's pretty close to flat there, and especially in the winter, you're gonna have gloves on or something. It'll be hard to grab that and open the tailgate. But now you can just grab it right by your hand, open it up, and you'll have a nice handle to grab onto. So there were two things that I forgot to mention earlier when I was putting this together. As you can see, the tailgate's done now, but one thing I missed was how to make these hinges. Really simple, just two pieces of tube. Here's one piece, there's another piece. Each piece of tube has a piece of flat stock welded onto it, and then that's the hinge. You run a bolt through it, and that's that. And I welded the flat piece offset to the tube so the hinge can lay flat, as you can see. And then when I welded this side of the hinge onto the tailgate, I had to notch out the this piece of box tube so it clears it, and I notched out the tube, I clamped the box tube onto the plate, and I ran a piece of rod, this same diameter, 5/8 threaded rod, through all 4 hinges on the tailgate, and that made sure that all of the hinges were aligned. And then I carefully tacked them, took this off, and I tacked the upper 2 corners, like these 2 corners of the hinge on here, so it was a little more rigid. And the other thing I didn't show was how I aligned these hinges onto the truck itself. So once I tacked the tailgate side hinge onto the tailgate, I put the other hinge half on, ran a bolt through, and then I clamped it into place on the truck. And the way I did that, so I had a couple boards like this. I had 3 of them. I threw a tire on the backside just to weigh it down, and the board stuck out like this. And keep in mind, at this point I didn't have any of the box tubing welded on. This was just an 1/8 inch piece of plate steel. So it was kind of floppy, so I needed to make sure it was nice and rigid and level. So with the board, a couple boards here like this, I had a C-clamp on it. I had one on one end, the middle, the other end, so it was nice and flat. And then I gently pushed the tailgate against the truck, so the truck side of the truck half of the hinge was against the flatbed, and I made sure it was aligned side to side, got everything just the way I wanted it, and then I tacked the hinge onto the truck. Now it just so happens that I needed clearance for these nut heads, so what I had to do, you can kind of see it in there, I put an extra spacer in there, another 3/16 spacer to pull this hinge away from the truck a little bit, and that way I can spin the nut around. You can see I just barely have enough clearance as it is. But that's how I aligned these hinges onto the truck, so I know everything was just right. So here's the tailgate all welded up and finished. And I did a test fit on the truck, and the problem is I could get the middle 2 hinges in, but not these, not the outer ones. And the problem is, now this is something I should have foreseen, but what can you do? Let's see if I can show you. Can you see that? See how it's bent like that? That's because I welded one side and not the other, and it bent the entire thing. So naturally the outer hinges really aren't going to line up because it's bent, and when I aligned all the hinges, the tailgate was perfectly flat. So my plan is to run some weld bead here and there, and that should curl it back up and straighten everything out. I don't want to, try to drive over this or hit it with a machine or something to bend it, because it's just going to ruin it. It's going to bend it in one point, and all this work is going to be wasted. So I'm going to run some weld beads here, but in the end the purpose of the weld bead is going to be to pull this and curl it back up. Also, the other thing that I did while I'm welding on this truck, weld a couple of these nice little D-rings. I put 4, 1 in each corner, and this will make it really easy to tie stuff down. Well, this turned out to be a kind of a shit show, but as you can see, this is how I ended up straightening the tailgate. This is one strong goddamn tailgate. I can drive the machine right up on here and it won't even flex to the ground. I tried my welding idea. It worked, but it bent it too much, so I tried welding on the first area again to bend it back, and it just turned into a mess. It wouldn't straighten out. But now, luckily, it's perfect. It took the entire weight of this machine, which is about 6,000 pounds, to straighten this out. Now the next step is to take these end brackets. Well, I got to hammer that bolt in more, that pivot bolt, but these are going to be welded on right about there. So here I welded the supports on, and I noticed that the way I put this bolt in, the head of the bolt was here. You don't want to do that, because if you ever want to take that bolt out, it's going to slide and hit that. So I reversed it around so the nut goes here. And for some reason, something made me think that when the tailgate was closed, this part would be more over here, and this bolt would be sliding through the box tube. But when everything is level and vertical, it is not so. So I actually just took these that came out of the box with the sliding latch bolt, and I'm just going to use those. I weld those on, tacked them on, and everything works fine. Well, I got the chains attached. I ended up putting them just like this, so when you close the tailgate, they fold in right out of the way. You just go and do the latches, Flop it down. Look at that. Perfect. The one thing though that I'm going to modify or improve is that if I put weight on the tailgate, I don't know if you can see that that upright piece is flexing. Well, it's really not the upright piece itself, but the sheet metal of the bed that it's attached to is flexing. Okay, so I'm just going to make a little angle bracket going down like so, and we should be all set. And so there you have it, everybody. There's the finished product. I just threw a coat of paint on it, and this is the next day, so it's nice and dry. And I think it came out really well. I'll show you how it works. Just grab those, slide it down, or slide it over, plop it down. Perfect. And there's the angle bracket I made. And that makes it nice and sturdy. You can jump up and down this tailgate and it doesn't move at all. Nice coat of Rust-Oleum black. And this is a sweet tailgate. I'm really happy with it. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this maybe helps out some of you out there if you've got a similar truck situation and you want to make one of these yourself. I think this came out really well. I would not do anything different. I would just be a little more careful about welding this and dealing with warping, but you know, it is what it is. Welding warp stuff. No two ways about it. So once again, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's always more coming. And thanks for watching. Come on back for more.